Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today I get to interview Ian. So Ian, welcome man.
Thank you.
So Ian, you got typed not too long ago. What was your official typing result?
So I got typed as MF, SITE, blast, play, consume, sleep.
So you are a very extroverted ISTJ.
That's what Dave and Shan say.
What did you think and how did you feel when you got that typing results back?
Um, it seemed like it was kind of. I had some mixed feelings. On the one hand, it was kind of like a Wizard of Oz moment, where the wizard gives the cowardly lion his courage badge.
Yeah.
Um, And I was like, "Oh, you think I'm Savior Blast? How sweet of you." um, on the other hand, when I was looking at the profile they gave me, it was kind of amusing because it was like, this is a very different person, and some of the people who know me in real life got a bit of a chuckle out of some of the similar type people that Dave and Shen gave me, like what was her name, like Brene Brown or something like that. Like I had family members saying, "Wow, Ian, we wish you were this person."
Yeah, Brene Brown is awesome. She's one of my favorite
Yeah.
out there. But did you think it was accurate? Did you not think it was accurate? What part of it were you, did you agree with everything or not?
So the way I look at it, it's kind of like it's kind of like a cookbook where they got all the ingredients right. Like I think that they found the stuff that's in the cake. Um, it's just a question of did they put the ingredients in the right order. So like yeah, MF. Yeah, I'm an MFer. Um,
I love that.
yeah. And I think like on the functions that are in there. Yeah, I think the main disagreement is on the animals. And honestly, that's an area where, so I got typed like 2 months ago, and my my self type at the time was one thing. I'm at a point where the type I'm exploring is different even from that self type.
What did you self-type yourself as?
At the time, I was thinking play, consume, sleep, blast. So an NETE type, but I realized I was peacocking tribes so hard at the time, man. I'd been going through like some personal failings and some stuff blew up in my face. Um, so I'd kind of fallen in love with the idea of this persona of somebody who, like, I care about the tribe, I care what people think, I care about reality. Um, so yeah, I think, like, in terms of me disagreeing with the way Dave and Shan typed me, whether it was because they got something wrong or whether because I was like putting forth an idealized self. Um, yeah, at this point, I'm thinking that play is a demon. I still think blast is. I think I'm somewhere in the sleep, consume, sleep family.
Do you still think you're an ISTJ? So maybe like a jumper, like SIFI type?
So if I'd gotten that as a result, I would have gone with it. Um, I, to be honest, I find myself butting heads with reality and labels way too much to really consider that to be something I respect.
They did type you as sleep last, so that
Yeah.
NF last. So how do you feel about being sleep last and NF last?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I'm trying to think of a way to say it without being like too pointed because at the same time, it's not like I'm offended or anything, but like I'm the kind of person who's really good at pacing himself. And like if I'm getting pushed to do too much, like if there's like external pressure to overextend myself, I'll be like, screw you. Like I don't really have a hard time setting boundaries for myself. And there have been plenty of times in my life where I'd be there'd be pressure to do something and I'd be called selfish for not wanting to do it. Because like, no, I got my own thing going on. Like I think maybe why I seemed sleep last to Dave and Shan is, and this is one of the things where the savior and demon concepts, they can shift a bit because sometimes they're what you focus on, sometimes they're what you respect, sometimes they're obvious and easy. I think for me, sleep is kind of obvious and easy to me, so I wouldn't like talk about it because to me it's kind of like tying my shoes. Um, like I remember being in when I was in college, I was part of a campus ministry. We were Episcopalian, so we're like, kind of like on the left end as far as mainline Christianity goes. But I remember we would do like this meditation stuff, and everybody else in the group would talk about how it was like such a great chance to be able to like slow down and consult their own internal dialogue. And I was like, you don't do that all the time anyway. Or like, yeah, like in a previous relationship where I was with somebody who I think was blast play, and my sleep would irritate the hell out of her, and her sleep last would irritate me. Where I'd be like, okay, these things you're worried about, we don't need to do them right now. We can just rest, and we would just lie down. And then 5 minutes later, she'd be like, Ian, I'm not calming down. Whereas I'm like, I've been calm the whole time.
Would you say it's accurate that you are info dominant though? Like having the most accurate information is very important to you. Like when someone says something wrong and it's inaccurate, you freak out a little bit. You're like, no, that's not right.
Um, that's one area where I've been kind of like going back and forth on. So I'm kind of envisioning myself in the consume sleep or sleep consume family. If I'm blast play or play blast, either one, I could see an argument either way. There are, if something really unambiguously goes against my values, then yeah, I'll push back. Um, but in terms of being accurate, it's like, life is short, man is mortal. Based on my family history, I've only got like another 55 years left on this planet. There are bigger things to worry about besides spelling and grammar, and yeah. Which makes me, so like I'm a teaching assistant, and that attitude, the students love me for that. Because like as long as I just get stuff done, I'm cool with it. But then some of my colleagues are like, you didn't mark this off, what the hell? But whatever. we're in a pandemic, I can get away with it.
Do you think it's because you have feminine TE, so you're pretty chill, like pretty relaxed and flexible with the tribe?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I've been thinking that having double feminine play can also make things kind of tricky because you don't necessarily know where that thing is stacked up because it's so movable with the tribe. But then the double masculine sleep, it's like,
You do use a lot of recents though, TE recents. So I think if they type you as a blast first, I think maybe they just did it out of like, oh, he's using a lot of recents. So
yeah,
because like since we started this interview, you did try to explain reasons for every single coin. So I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot of like reasons here.
yeah.
What about being an IJ? Do you freak out about chaos? Is that something that like freaks you out?
Not really.
So what do you freak out about then? Because there's
I
four things that can freak you out, right? So
I freak out about having to be on a consistent schedule, having to clock in all the time, having to check in all the time, having to like communicate all the time. So like if I'm at a desk job or have to be at the same place every day, it doesn't feel right. Like, I've got my own personal ups and downs and I don't want to have to be at like the same level every single day. I want to be able to come into a place and just just do whatever my personal flux is telling me to do.
so is that like freak out about clocking in, or is that freak out about sleep? Because maybe you're like you want to have like a if you don't feel like it, you want to relax, or conserve your energy. Would you
Mm-hmm.
say?
Yeah. I mean, you can make an argument either way.
Gotcha. What about double decider? Do you agree that you're balanced with self and tribe? Like you can see, like yeah, you can see the tribe point of view, you can see your point of view, so you're pretty balanced with that stuff.
Yeah. That's one aspect I do agree with. Ironically, I remember on the recordings, there was one part where Shan was saying that I was going to be more. I would have more characteristics of double observers and single deciders. But that's because they thought I was like super TE. They thought I was like all about the tribe and not really focusing on myself. I think, yeah, I can see the multiple points of view. What frustrates me is when somebody else doesn't have that or isn't interested in that dialogue between the self and the rest of the world. Um, and like when I find that dialogue hits a stalemate, I mean, ultimately, I'll go my own way, and I've suffered for that, but I don't have any regrets about that.
So if it gets to the point where you can't have a win-win, then you'll choose yourself essentially.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Earlier you said that you're quite chill and
Yeah.
you're a teacher assistant, people like you. So it's probably because you're a double decider. You can see yourself in the tribe and you're pretty,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is kind of ironic because people say that IJs are like uptight, but actually from my experience, they're pretty flexible with the tribe. They're pretty balanced with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
the EJs you have to look out for.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I actually agree with you on that. Not to offend any EJs watching right now. Okay. The funny thing is actually you look like my ISTJ client, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of because I'm an ENFP, so I have a lot of ISTJ friends. So
Yeah.
I do think you're an ISTJ, but I'm not sure if you're blast play ISTJ. I think maybe it's possible that you're the sleep first ISTJ. I don't know if you're sleep consume or sleep blast, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
you do. So you have a very good self awareness. Is what I'm seeing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, which is going to be like a lot of sleep. processing there. Not saying if you're sleep class, you can't have good self-awareness, but I'm seeing it. So there's something to that. So let's talk about self-awareness. Let's talk about your FI since we're on that topic now. Talk about your FI. You're a masculine FI, right? So earlier you said that if someone goes against your values, then you're not gonna, agree with them, and you're not gonna, do work with them. So what are your values? Can you give me your top 5 values, let's say?
Yeah. So it's not like I have them on a list or anything. I've kind of always seen myself as a self-contained unit. So, so like whatever I'm experiencing emotionally at the time, I just kind of I process it myself and I let that guide my decisions. I don't like having my feelings managed. Like if somebody's trying to push me there, I'll be like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think something that sustained me has been the belief that a better world is possible, a better life is possible, that and that I believe that's always true either at the individual level or the institutional level. And suffering is a choice. And that's not necessarily to say, like, oh, Kendrick, your suffering is your choice. But, if somebody's suffering because of something, it's because somebody chose to make that happen. And so let's not.
You said earlier something along the lines of like you don't want anyone to like move you when you want to process your own emotions. You don't want anyone to move you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I kind of relate with that because like sometimes I feel let's say angry or sad, and someone's trying to cheer me up, and I'm like, I don't want to get cheered up. I want to be sad, or I want to be angry.
Yeah.
Do you relate with that? Like
Oh, absolutely. And I think that happens the most when, so for me, it's kind of like, so you know all those anecdotes about how women will see like 500 different colors and guys will be like, oh, that's purple.
yeah,
It's kind of like that, but in reverse, where for me, feelings and emotions and values are this broad palette, and those finer distinctions might be lost on others. Like, I'll just pick a random one. Like if I'm feeling irked, that's different from being angry. But
yeah.
then other people will be like, oh, you're angry. We need to make you not angry. I'm like, no, I'm just irked.
It's so funny you say that because I relate to that so much. Like
Yeah.
there is like a specific word for that specific emotion. It's not just like mad, sad, happy.
Right.
It's I was seeing a counselor for a bit because I was sleep last, so my biggest problem was setting boundaries, which I'll ask you about setting boundaries in just a second. But I told her that the emotions that I had dealt with the most since I was a kid, number 1 was sadness, number 2 was anger, and number 3 was loneliness. And I told her loneliness is something I kind of got over already. So
Yeah.
it's sadness and anger. And then she said to me, anger is just the iceberg of the emotion. It's not the main emotion. There's something underneath it. So she gave me like a diagram, and there's like so many different like types of anger, right? It's like, okay, point to me which one of these is the real anger. And then I was looking at it. I'm like, this one, disrespect, And I was like, and there's a specific word to it, right? While people say it's angry, I'm like, no, it's like the anger is from being disrespected. That was like number 1. There's other stuff too, but the primary one was that. So definitely, you definitely have FI because like you have that like you have that like laser focus to that like specific emotion, and it's not like it's not purple. It's like what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So in the topic of setting boundaries, how good are you at setting boundaries with other people?
So for me, it comes down to I'm not a big hierarchy guy, and I would even go so far as to say that I'm anti-hierarchy. So like, if I have somebody who's in a position of responsibility over me, um, like I'm somebody who's chill to have as a supervisor, but I'm a pain in the ass to have as a subordinate, because like if you're above me in the hierarchy and you keep pushing me, I will say no. Um, I have an idea of my own energy management. I have an idea of what I want to do and what I don't want to do, and like it's something that I've lost jobs over, but they were jobs I didn't like. So it's like, thank you for laying me off. But I'll take the unemployment for a while there.
Yeah,
um,
that's funny.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it's just it's knowing when to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tricky part is setting those boundaries when I'm the one who's in the position of responsibility, having to set boundaries with like subordinates or students or whatever. There and like I didn't really have the like when I was first an instructor, I didn't like have the previous experience, so I just kind of like deferred to what my elders suggested. Um, and I just what I eventually learned, I didn't really want to do this at first because I didn't really want to like lay down the law at the beginning. But I've just discovered that if you send like if you just put like a simple message saying we'll respond between the hours of blank and blank, that takes care of like 90% of problems.
Okay. It does sound like you're pretty good at like setting boundaries with other people. Even with that like respond from this time to this time. It's like it's almost like it's a savior state because it wasn't like aggressive or anything. Like when you put that time between this time to this time, no one is gonna like fight you. It's like, oh, you're too controlling, man. No one's gonna say that, right? It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, we'll respond at that time. That's not a big deal, right? So um, it
I
sounds
feel
like
like
you're
talk Oh, sorry, keep going.
no, it just seems like you're managing your energy a lot. So the info dominant thing is kind of confusing because it sounds like you're quite good at you're pretty balanced with managing your energy. Like I don't think you're play last to be honest. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely not play last, but you know I think if like what's confusing me now for you is that you're using a lot of sleep. I haven't seen much. I haven't seen much blast, so there's a chance you might be blast last. I don't know. Did you think you were blast last at first?
I've Yeah, so when I was going through all the videos that Dave and Shan have posted about Blast, um, and a lot of the Blast last issues about not communicating, procrastinating, can't get started, leaving people hanging, um, I was like, wow, way to call me out. Yeah. I but yeah, I think part of it too is that in my typing video there was one thing in like the first 10 seconds that both Dave and Shan zeroed in on that I think they kind of took the wrong way.
Yeah,
They thought it was me taking responsibility for communication, where I'd had a mishap with my microphone because I'd forgotten to plug it in.
yeah.
And so in the tape you can see me like showing the cord hanging. I'm like, and then I just plug it back in and I put a subtitle that says take two, dot, dot, dot. And they thought I was like taking responsibility for saying, hey, Dave and Shan, that was take one. Here's take two. When no, I was just like making a self-deprecating joke, like making fun of my own like technical uh stupidity.
I like how you're having like things problem like on the spot.
Yeah.
Typical like single observer having things problem, right?
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your things problem. Like, what kind of things problem have you like experienced that like really like caught you, with your pants down essentially?
Ooh, I love that image. So I would say a lot of it has to do with control, obligations, um, having options taken away, or having prerequisites or requirements kind of like dumped onto me. Um, I I remember when I was 25, the the political system has only gotten worse since then, but the political system was going nuts then. I lost a job because there's a federal government shutdown. Point being, politics made it so that I didn't have my public housing job anymore. So I was like, hey mom, hey dad, hey mom and dad's couch. Um, but I remember feeling very constricted, very confined, and there were a lot of family issues going on as well. So I just left. And I remember, even though I didn't really know where I was going to sleep, or where I was going to work, yeah, there were times I got stressful, but really, I wasn't the whole homeless thing didn't stress me out. What stressed me out was cops.
What was it about the cops that stressed you out?
So it wasn't necessarily them or anything they did, but just coming from a place where I came from a very suburban town where there's been a lot done to criminalize homelessness.
Oh wow.
So if you sleep on a park bench or if you feed a homeless person, then that's a municipal violation. So it's I was raised to be a good Methodist boy. I thought that we were supposed to be compassionate like Jesus. Um, so I didn't ever think that the cops were out to get me or anything, but I knew just keep your head down, don't cause trouble, and there wasn't any, as long as I did that, there wasn't anything to hassle me. But that was something I was worried about. But the point I'm trying to make is being constricted in my family's home with a lot of issues and alcoholism, not my own, but other people. Being stuck in that was very stressful. This is not the life I want to live.
So there was a
And I
lot
was thinking, there's so many other ways to live that are so much better than this.
so there was a lot of alcohol that was present then when you moved back to your family's house. That was kind of getting making you uncomfortable, I guess.
Yeah. So my father will easily go through a 6-pack a day on a light day. Easily. There are times that it's not unusual for him to go through multiple 12-packs in a weekend.
So your dad has things problem too, he abusing like over gathering the alcohol.
I feel like it might be a self-tribe thing on his end because he's using it to cope with his emotions, using it to cope with his stresses with people. Because I don't know, it feels kind of weird because normally when I stress out about stuff, it'll be stuff like law enforcement and criminalization and capitalism and global warming. Whereas when he's stressed out about something, it'll be like, why are these people so stupid? And I'm like, we all are. We're human beings. We're all like little grains of idiotic sand in the eyes of God.
I have the same experience as you because my dad was also big into alcohol too.
Yeah.
He just drank and drank and drank until
Yeah.
pretty much he passed away, not from alcohol, but I think it contributed to.
Yeah.
And my dad, I think my dad was an EP
Mm-hmm.
kind of person. So I
Hmm.
think he did have issues with the tribe, but I think, or with self essentially,
Yeah.
because he was a tribe EP kind of guy. But the main problem was alcohol, and alcohol is a thing. So he was
Hmm.
still an EP. So maybe your dad is like an EPEJ. That's why he's like freaking out about people. But like, if alcohol was the go-to, it was like, oh, that's like a thing problem, right? So
Yeah.
so it's kind of like your opposite in a way, because like I still think you're an IJ, but maybe you're an IJ EP. If you're sleep consumed, then you would be like a weird mix of like
Right.
all control, because like my girlfriend was type of sleep consumed, right?
Hmm.
So Dave and Chan said she's an IJ EP,
Yeah.
and I was type as like play blast. So essentially I'm an EPIJ, right? So I was like, okay, it's like
Yeah.
my girlfriend did uh, accuse me of being controlling, right? It's like put your shoes on the floor, don't like make sure that you clean your plates after you use it. Don't leave it in the sink, like so I do get like controlling when it kind of that kind of stuff. So I'm like a weird hybrid. So I think I see it seems like you're also like a weird hybrid of some sort, you know?
See, with people like you, I've learned a way to avoid that conflict. I only ever have like one set of plates and dishes. So
Yeah,
if I don't clean that one set, I can't eat.
yeah, but I live with her, right? So it's not like
Right.
well, and then because I had a conversation with her about this, and she's like, it doesn't bother me to have the plate there. I'm like, but it bothers me, like don't do that, just it's not hard to like wash the plate after you eat, or like after you cook, but anyway, it's just like a weird quirk I have. Everyone's different, obviously. Okay, so it does seem like you know what, man, do you think they flip over your sleep and blast? It's like I do think that your play is definitely not last, and I do think you have consumed. I don't think you consumed last either. So it's pretty much a sleep in the blast that's kind of like confusing.
Yeah.
You haven't really done any blast. Like you've done a little bit since we started this interview, but there's so much like sleep processing and talking about yourself. And I do think you're sleep first because when we tried to
Hmm.
set up this interview at first, you like canceled out on me in the like last minute,
Right.
and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing, And then I'm like, because like, and I'm like, okay, that seems to me like a sub above tribe kind of like act, when you did that, and it's,
Sorry, man.
it's all good. It's all good. But then you came back later on. You're like, okay, I'll do it now. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. At the time, I remember when the result first came out. Um, and I felt like there was a lot of, I wasn't like irked at DNS, but like at the larger community, I felt like there was a lot of pressure to like accept this now, accept this now. And by the way, we're going to list you as this on all our official documentation. And I'm like, well, we haven't really figured out if this makes sense for me or not.
yeah,
So yeah, I was like, I'm not really ready for this conversation yet.
yeah, and then not only were you not ready for conversation, you didn't explain to me why.
Yeah,
There's no communication, right? So like, I'm not hazing you or anything. I'm just saying it's like, as an evidence, right? You know,
yeah.
we're both double deciders here, so we're pretty chill with this stuff. But like, but like,
And because you have FI, you can relate to the idea of being a self-contained unit. Like, okay, dude, if it works or doesn't work for you, whatever.
I mean, it's more like, you didn't explain to me why you weren't ready to do the interview, right? There was no like detailed explanation. You weren't like,
Yeah,
I just got
yeah,
my type back. I'm not ready to do the interview yet. Let me think about
yeah,
it. You post about it first. Once I'm ready, then we can talk about it. Like, no, there was none of that. He's like, no, I don't want to do it.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like,
Setting boundaries.
yeah, it was just like a straight, like,
Yeah.
it was straight sleep, right? And there's no blast too. There's no explanation. Like, you didn't even speak up or anything. So I was like, the fuck, But anyways, it's fine because that's what
Yeah,
blast class people do, right? They just like they
yeah.
don't speak up, right? They don't talk about it. But then definitely you have play because like you're joking around a lot, and you're like, we have a back and forth conversation. It's not like
Mm,
I blast and then you blast and then you blast. There's like none of that
right.
happening. Um, let's talk about you being audio kinesthetic. So do you feel like you learn best from like listening?
Oh, absolutely. When I was a student, well, I still am because I'm in PhD study now. But when I was in like high school, the Yeah, I was that kid who didn't really have to take notes because the teacher could say stuff and like I would just process it by hearing it. And it would be hard for me to take notes other than just like broad concept, broad concept, broad concept. So like they could talk for 30 minutes and I would have like 3 notes down, just they talked about these 3 concepts and I could remember what they said about those 3 concepts really really quickly. Um, so, yeah, that's pretty much my go-to is processing by hearing.
I completely related to what you just said about like you just heard what the teacher said and you like picked up the key concepts and like
Yeah.
remember it. When I was in college, I was like the worst skipper. Like I
Mm-hmm.
skipped all my classes and stuff. It was so bad. And and that's one of the reasons why I failed a lot of my classes because I knew if I had just shown up, I didn't have to take notes. I just need to listen in and I would know enough that I could get by in the exams.
Mm-hmm.
But if I skip, then I have to go read the textbook and stuff, which I probably didn't read,
Right.
and I would pick up nothing. So I completely like relate to what you said. It's like, yeah, if you just hear it, then that already covers most of the bases. And maybe you have to review a little bit, but that
Mm-hmm.
covers most of the bases already. What about kinesthetic? How are you with doing things with your hand, your body? Like, are you good at exercising, movements, sports, maybe?
So that's something I kind of had to push myself into later in life. I make myself sound hella old right now. I'm only 32. So I was never really that coordinated as a kid. Um, I was that kid who, like, I was so bad at physical stuff, so bad at sports that if I made a shot in basketball, people like fans for the other team would stand up and cheer. Like that literally happened in a rec league once. um,
That's funny.
so like part of this comes back to family background. I like I've made a point to go to seek counseling as a way to honor my father with his problems that he never took care of. And in my mid 20s, I started paying more attention to what I eat and working out daily. Like I did a daily 45-minute routine to honor my mother and the some of the health stuff that she developed by not taking care of herself. Um, that has fallen by the wayside since an accident I had a couple of years ago. I just wanted some chili cheese fries. Damn it! I don't go to Wiener Schnitzel. You go to Wiener Schnitzel, you get run over by a truck. I got hit by a truck, broke my ankle.
Oh my god.
Um, yeah, I got a bunch of gnarly scars. But yeah, ever since then, the like for me, it's been a constant negotiation between wanting to keep my body active and my body saying no. And I'm not a great negotiator.
My god, man, that's like the worst things problem, getting hit by a truck. That is like the worst things problem you could ever have. Like,
And on top of it, the driver was trying to claim that they had no assets. They own 12 rental properties.
jeez.
Freaking vultures. They bought up a bunch of properties that had been like $500,000 each, but because it was like 06, 07, 08, during the market crash, they were valued at like 90 grand.
Yeah.
So they spent like $1 million and now they have 12 rental properties worth like 5-6 million.
What
Freaking vultures.
what did you get out of it then?
We're still figuring that out.
You're still settling that thing? It's still in process?
Yeah, we've had to take them to court because they refuse to settle.
Wow, that is annoying as hell.
Yeah, but hey, you don't achieve wealth by giving your money away. So I get it.
So double decider. Even though they screwed you over, you're still double decider. Like,
Well, because when you get down to it, the problem is not necessarily individuals, it's the institutions and what is made available and what's incentivized. um yeah, because ultimately people are going to take care of themselves, or who they see as extensions of themselves. Okay, whatever. So when somebody screws me over, the question, I mean, obviously, I want to not get screwed over, but then the question is, how do we redesign society to make it so that that option is not on the table in the first place?
That was very NF, man. That's great. Um, I'm starting to think you do have NF as like a savior of some sort. Very odd. You said you're studying counseling. Is that kind of like where you're studying your PhD?
Oh, sorry. I must have. So I didn't mean that I went into counseling to study it. I meant that I got counseling as a patient.
You got counseling
as a patient. Like I went into, I had somebody counseling me.
counseling you. Oh.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you studying in school?
Political science, specifically labor studies.
Is that what you're getting your PhD on right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about your undergrad? What do you study?
Political science.
So you got a political science degree, and then master's is the same thing, political science as well.
Yeah. So I got to a point in my life a few years ago where I felt like I was just spinning my wheels. I felt like I was just like a hamster running in place. And I was like, I've had enough of this. Let's do something else. And I didn't have a lot of money, and I've never really had a lot of highly marketable job skills. I think being a smartass doesn't really look good on a resume. So like, grad school just seemed like, even if I got nothing out of it, like especially since in PhD study they pay you to do the PhD because they're paying you to be the teaching assistant. So worst case scenario, I'm just out a few years after having a different adventure. I got to move to a different city, meet new people, engage with new concepts. I had studied political science as an undergrad, but I didn't know what political economy was, because that's the specific subfield I'm in, political economy. And I remember the first time I ever met my now advisor, I saw a bunch of books on her bookshelf about political economy, and I was like, that's kind of a dumb question. What is this? And so she gave me this. She explained this concept to me, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to study that. So here I am.
That was quick. You just locked onto it. You're like, I like it. Let's do it. I had a question for you, but it flew out of my head, which is annoying. I hate when that happens. God, I'm so forgetful now. Okay, what was my question? Okay, let me ask you something else, since I don't remember.
Okay, permission granted.
Since I don't remember my question. You have, regardless if you were blast first and sleep last, or sleep first and blast last, the one thing that's for sure is you have double activated NE. So talk about having double activated NE, and it's fourth. Even though it's fourth, it's double activated. What has your experience been like with double activated NE?
So I'm an ideas guy, and I keep introducing ideas. There's kind of this tension, because I think a lot of people around me have this expectation, like, oh no, we have to make sure Ian's happy because we're using his ideas. Whereas, like, I don't care. I got plenty where that shit came from, man.
Yeah, it's not personal. The idea is not personal for you.
Right. Yeah. So and I find that I like to try to produce win-win situations. Sometimes they become a moot point anyway. I think one example that comes to mind, there was a student strike, a graduate student strike at UC Santa Cruz several months back. So they were refusing to grade assignments, which, you get why, because they were paid so little that they were sleeping in their cars. Okay, so like my heart goes out to them. At the same time, not grading stuff was kind of producing problems for like especially international undergrads. So when my department was considering joining them, we were debating like, we should join them in solidarity. We should oppose them because they're hurting students. I'm like, why not join them and just give all our students an A? Just give everyone an A, pass everyone. That would create so much support for us amongst the undergrads, because then we'll be the cool instructor who just went easy on everybody that quarter on strike. For some reason, that wasn't really seen as a viable option.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny too, because there'll be times when I can predict how stuff's going to fall out, because I can like play a bunch of scenarios in my head, and I can see like, okay, these 5 are probably not going to happen. One of these 2 is pretty likely, but then there'll be a bunch of stuff like right in front of me that I'm missing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because you're not info dominant, so you miss like a spot, like
Yeah.
every time was info dominant, but then if you're missing like gaps like this, you there's like something you miss, right, during your research.
Right.
And then I think it's funny that like when it comes to your ideas, it's feminine NE, right? So you're gonna have like a lot of ideas. Some are bad, some are good, and but it doesn't. The point is you have a lot of them. You can just keep spitting them out.
Yeah.
And, you have like a factory, conveyor belt of them.
Mhm.
No one's doing quality control on them, unfortunately. So you're gonna get like a mixed bag.
Right. Reality has to do the quality control for me.
Yeah.
And I also find that there's a certain sense that stuff is certain topics are on the table. For me, the table goes on into infinity. The table never stops. I had one of my favorite quotes that stuck around with me. I had an assistant manager when I was working at Guitar Center, who was talking about how he's going to go off and have a crazy weekend doing shrooms. And so we were talking about hallucinogens, and he was like, "Yeah, Ian, you probably shouldn't get into that because you're already crazy enough." Just because like the ideas of what the regular limits are, the regular limits and the regular obligations. Like sometimes I'll put my toes where they shouldn't be, and other times I'll be too lazy to put my toes where they belong.
That comment that person said to you about not doing shrooms because you're already crazy is it's funny because it's kind of like with me. They're like, yeah, Kendrick, you don't need to drink alcohol or coffee because you're pretty hyper already. Like, there's no point.
Right.
I've been like, I don't know if you've been like clubbing, but I've been clubbing before. I was completely sober because I'm pretty like hyper already. Like, I didn't need anything.
See, I generally come off as super introverted because like in club settings, I get bored out of my mind. Because like there's only so many times I can do this.
I get you, man. I get you 100%.
Yeah.
I hate that so much, Like, yeah, maybe the first 30 minutes or 1 hour is nice, but afterwards you're like, now what,
Oh man, you've got more stamina than me. Although that's one of the advantages of getting run over by a truck. I now have that excuse. I can say, I'm kind of done with this. My ankle's bothering me.
I like how
It's
chill.
also
I like how chill you are getting hit by a truck.
Well, the thing is, the actual accident itself wasn't that scary. I was mostly just annoyed. I remember lying in the street looking at my ankle. I could see my bone. And I was just like, who does that? But then when I was put on the anesthetic on ketamine, and then coming out of that, it was nuts. It was like serious inception stuff. It was like when I first thought I woke up,
Yeah.
I was actually still asleep, and I was like in seven or 10 different layers of dreams. Like I was having a dream in which I was having a dream in which I was having a dream in which I was having a dream, and so I just had to wake up one layer at a time. And meanwhile, I'm in like this completely empty vacancy of reality, and I was like, huh, I guess I went to hell.
Is that what happens when they drug you? You're in a dream, in a dream, in a dream.
Yeah, but I didn't like see myself as like a material person.
Yeah.
It was more like I felt myself as an abstract concept, like the concept of Ian.
Okay.
And it was like this concept being whispered into reality, being whispered. I was like, no, shut up, quit whispering.
That sounds pretty crazy. That's a crazy dream, man.
Yeah.
Sounds fun actually. Um, you have double feminine play. What is double feminine play for you? Because we have the exact same sexual modalities, right? But I want to hear what
Yeah.
your double feminine play is like.
So for me, it's not being pushy externally. Um, like I said earlier, I see myself as a self-contained unit, and I believe in giving the same to everyone else around me. Um, the I feel like if your play is MF or FM, there's a bit more of a balance here between knowing when to push and when not to. Whereas if you're MM play, it's like, oh geez, back off.
Yeah, yeah,
And the MM play person is like, this is just how I normally talk.
yeah.
Um, I think it's also very like non-committal, very open-ended, very exploratory. I I don't really feel myself get overcommitted to a particular conception or plan. I'm like if a new idea comes to me, or if like I'm good at adjusting. I'm very adjustable, very very flexible.
That sounds sounds like double feminine play to me. What about double masculine sleep? What is that like? Are you like really aggressive when it comes to setting boundaries with people,
So for
or
for
do
me, it's
you rage when people wake you up, for example?
ooh. So I'm a very deep sleeper, and I mean you can say it's a typology thing. You can also say it has to do with me growing up 2 blocks from the largest rail yard west of the Mississippi. If I don't want to wake up, I'm not going to wake up. But
Wow.
then if I decide I'm going to wake up, you know, I could wake up after 4 hours and just be like, ready to take on the day. Yeah, and that's where like if other people are pushing on me or like I don't like getting touched in a way where I feel like somebody's trying to influence me. Like like how sometimes wait staff at a restaurant they'll be like touching on the shoulder to try build like a a rapport to get a bigger tip. I'm like, yeah, don't touch me. Fuck off. um and while I don't necessarily get stuck on my ideas, there might be some value that I'm trying to realize through those ideas. So like my plans can shift, but the motivation stays the same. And you know, there'll be some times when it's like, Ian, you should probably give up this motivation. Quit being so motivated, man.
It's funny you talked about like the tip thing or the girl touches your arm. You're like, don't touch me. Like I remember I was in because I have double masculine sleep like you, exact same functions and everything. I was in a
Mm-hmm.
party and this girl tried to grab my hand. I was like, "Don't touch me!" You know, like
Yeah.
it was just shock, right? It was so aggressive.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh," like I knew at that point. I was like, "Oh, that was too aggressive," you know. But it was like
Yeah.
I didn't have control over it. It was like a jolt almost, like it was like a knee jerk, you know, when someone hits your.
Yeah. Don't change me. Don't move me. Don't try to change my SF.
Yeah. I wasn't against it. It was just like a shock that the person tried to grab. Like it was like maybe if they came like, "Hey, I'm just gonna grab your hand." Oh, okay. You know, it's like they didn't do that first, right? It's just like
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting that you mentioned that because I was like, oh, wow, that happened. That exact same story
Yeah.
told me. Also happened to me. What is it? I'm kind of jealous of your superpower that you can sleep so deeply because I'm sleep last. I'm a real sleep last person, not like you, the fake sleep last person. You know, like my sleep is awful, man. Like I can't like when I sleep, it's super shallow. I get woken up really easily. That's why I get really angry when people wake me up because if I do fall asleep, it's like a rare treat, right? You know, I don't have like I don't know what battery you're using, but it's like high quality, man. My battery's awful. You know, it's like your charger's awesome.
I think if you do have that high sleep, there will be sometimes when it can look like high play because once you've done like that sleep charging, then you're just like ready to go throughout the day.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. That's a really good point. Um, what is SF play to you? Like, how do you experience SF play or SF sleep? Sorry, SF sleep.
SF sleep. So I kind of experience it as like looking at or using art for personal introspection. It kind of blends in with the NF a bit, but whatever. So like, well, I play guitar, I write songs, trying to sing, but one of the drawbacks of double masculine sleep, double masculine SF is that it's like I want to be pushed into good singing, but it's still immovable. the bad singing is immovable, man. But like a lot of what what I write artistically, it's reflecting on what I've experienced. It reflects on my aspirations for myself, for society. And I'm also not afraid to adopt like some like childhood objects to incorporate into that. There's a certain whimsy, if you will. So like the musical project that I've been working on, it's not just songs, but it's also like this imaginary world where I've always loved stuffed animals. I have a koala here.
Yeah.
Hey Kendrick, how's it going?
Oh, you got that double decider voice thing too happening.
Yeah. So then the idea is that I have several stuffed animals, and the idea is that each one is a different instrument in the band because I have like bass parts and drum parts and a couple guitars and different stuff. So then each one's assigned to a different stuffed animal. And so I'm like, wow, killer guitar solo, Malfi.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That is so interesting, man. Because I don't do the stuffed animal thing, but when I was a kid, I used to have the toys, the GI Joes and the X-Men toys,
Mm-hmm.
and like I was a big fan of like WWF or WWE now.
Mm-hmm.
So like each of those GI Joes and X-Men were like wrestlers. And like
Yeah.
I would like have like a storyline just like in TV. Like this guy's like WWE champion, and he has to defend his championship belt against this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also the double masculine SF. So like there's a certain stage in pretty much any young man's life where he's expected to show outward signs of machismo. And I was defiantly out of fashion with that step.
Definitely. Let's talk about NF consume real
Mm-hmm.
quick. So I noticed people with NF consume because I've interviewed ISTJs and I have ISTJs friends.
Mm-hmm.
They all seem to really like fantasy movies, books, or sci-fi movies and books. Like, do you like that kind of stuff? Like the sci-fi, the fantasy, like knights, like Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff. Like, do you really enjoy that kind of stuff?
So it's kind of gone back and forth in waves for me. I find that there'll be, like, at one point in my life, I'll be really big in this one particular franchise and I'll move on to something else. Yeah, Lord of the Rings was great. I remember for the longest time being a huge Harry Potter guy and
Yeah.
being a proud Hufflepuff, and it broke my heart to see how things are going with J.K. Rowling and the trans community, especially having a younger brother who came out as trans last year and who was also a proud Hufflepuff and a diehard Harry Potter fan until all that stuff. But I think that kind of ties out another thing is that the things I get into, it's not just about the thing, but it's also I also like attach kind of like my hopes and aspirations for what the world can look like, for what's possible, what's what what humanity can aspire to. And some of the things I consume, they won't necessarily be sci-fi or fantasy, but then when I do consume them, I'll think of a way to like turn them around or subvert them. Like um like cop shows. So there have been some that I would watch and appreciate. And I thought it'd be interesting to take that overall format, but then turn it into like a sci-fi dystopia where um, that reflects the reality of like the institutional flaws in law enforcement. And even going forward, like what if we privatize it? So what if we have all of these like incidents of getting beaten up by agents for random corporations?
Oh man, you should definitely be a fictional writer. I think that's a good that would be good, a side gig for you. Once you're done your PhD, like write
Right.
stories like this. I think you would sell pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Ian, man, we're gonna wrap the interview pretty soon. I have two last questions and we're done.
Cool.
First one is because you're like the weird ICJ that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you probably agree with me, but I don't think other people will because they'll just say, you were typed correctly, don't BS me or whatever. But regardless of what type you get, it's clear that you'll double activate NE. So in my opinion, chaos is you're still scared of chaos, but it's like nowhere near as big as like a typical IJ would. Like yours is like a minor nuisance. Yours like it's more like a nuisance, than like, F my life, it's not that. It's like a nuisance, right? So what advice can you give to the IJs, especially the ICJs, who's like freaking out about like the unknowns, like, oh my god, it's like a conspiracy against us, or like there's like something bad's gonna happen. I don't know what it is, but something bad's gonna happen. What can they do to avoid that from happening? Would you say?
Oh man, yeah, I would be a horrible person to try to give advice to them because
Like, dude, man, you refuse to blast. Like, I was like, it's like,
yeah, because like when the pandemic broke out, um I had, well, like over time as it's dragged on, this impression has faded, but my initial response was excitement because I'm like, whoa, this is a historic moment. We'll remember this forever. But then, of course, 150,000 people die. We'll remember that forever too. For IJs, I think my suggestion would be that, I mean, IJs already know that nobody's perfect. IJs already know that Well, like that's part of what drives me crazy about the chaos, right? Is having to deal with everybody's like individual irrationalities, and not being able to predict what will happen. So like they already know, everyone has flaws. So the way, the state that you exist in right now, you can build a better self, be a better self. Um, the like I don't want to be too callous because like I know that the lives we've built now are precious, but so are your like your future aspirations. Like don't let maintenance snuff out your aspirations. Don't let who you are now be an enemy to who you want to be.
So like don't get stuck on just that box. Like be open to more.
Yeah, you can build a newer, better box out of like mahogany.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you can upgrade your box. You don't need to stay the
Yeah, yeah.
same. Got it. Got it. All right, man. And then do you have any question for me as your opposite? Like you're an ICJ, I'm an ENFP. Do you have any question for me? Like being your opposite? You know?
Right, yeah. I'm kind of curious about what your experience is with sleep last, not just being diagnosed sleep last, but also like relating to that.
It's basically the three biggest problem I have with sleep last is number one, I don't set boundaries really well with other people. So if
Mm-hmm.
people want to do something, it's hard for me to say no. I've worked on it this year and it's getting better, but it's still too aggressive because my sleep is like if you want to practice something, right, you need to use it a lot. So if I'm using sleep a lot, my sleep is double masculine, so it's super aggressive as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to learn how to like use it without like super aggressive. I'm trying to make it neutral, but it's hard. It is still punchy and aggressive. So that's work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is I have terrible sleep, so I'm always trying to figure out how I can get the best sleep. So for me, I learned like, okay, I need linen sheets for my bed because I was doing some
Mm-hmm.
research and I'm like, oh, linen sheets is the best because it regulates your body temperature. I'm like, okay, cool. So that worked for a bit, but it's not complete yet. So right now I learned that if it's too hot, I cannot sleep. So like right now it's so hot. We have a heat wave right here in Canada, in Vancouver. So me and my girlfriend are looking to get like an AC so that we can like sleep. Because we stayed in a hotel a few days ago. I'm like, oh, I can sleep fine. I think it's just way too hot. That's why I can't sleep. So that's another thing I'm trying to work on right now. It's like, okay, I need to
Mm-hmm.
work at that. The emotional sleep processing I can actually do. Dave and Chan actually said I can,
Right.
even though I'm sleep last, they said, oh, you can sleep, your feelings and stuff. What the hell? Are you sure your sleep like it's like we want to type you as consume last, but no, you're not consume last. You're info dominant, so you have to be sleep last then. Like, well, good for you that you can use it. I'm like, cool, sweet. And then, but they said that like the part that I'm having trouble with is also setting priorities. So
Mm.
they said part of sleep or FIs is like knowing your priorities and
Mm.
taking to the priorities. And I do know my priorities, but I don't stick to it. So that's like the problem. I
Mm.
have trouble with like self-control. Like I do know
Yeah.
the right thing to do, but I don't do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are like the things. I don't know if you related to any of the stuff I said, but what's your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah, that helps me clarify like one of the conceptual problems I'd always had with figuring out the whole SCCS family, especially among the deltas. So like the FIT NESI users. It was trying to tell the difference between the CPs and the CSs because once you've got that NE driven consume, it's like what's the difference between going to sleep versus play, and so that makes sense. So like I know that's completely different from your type. I'm drawing like a random connection here. My bad. So like I guess so like with CS, they'll consume, they'll branch out, and then they'll winnow down with their priorities because they got the sleep, which is knowing their priorities, and then they'll branch back out from there. Whereas the CPs, they'll branch out and then they'll branch out again without consulting their priorities yet.
Yeah, it's like let's say CP, blast, sleep. I think they would do what you just described.
Yeah.
But maybe CPS.
Mm-hmm.
Blast might, they might do like I don't know, consume and then
Yeah.
like play, but then they'll go back in again. So it's like
Yeah.
a zigzag of something that's happening. So for me, like I even noticed this because I'm play blast, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like one of the weirdest thing I noticed at first I didn't think I was typed correctly because I do consume a lot, but they did say that you're always more interested in your demons than your saviors. So
Mm.
I did consume a lot, but it was because I knew I needed to learn stuff to function properly, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was definitely like it was a demon state. I also learned that I can't learn anything unless I blasted first because like I'll give you an example with cameras. So I like
Mm-hmm.
traveling, so I like to make travel videos. So
Right.
I learned that I didn't know what camera I wanted. So even though I researched all these cameras, I'm like, I don't know which is the right one for me until I
Mm-hmm.
use the camera first. And after I use the camera, like, oh, that doesn't, I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. So now I consume the hell out of like the camera brands until I find the right one with all the functions
Mm-hmm.
that I like. But I can't do it without trying it out first. I need to blast first before I can figure out. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that doesn't work for me. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that. So, you know, but yeah, sorry, keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was the one interrupting. So do you find that okay? So like one of the observations I've made with myself is that I will want to learn new things even if they have zero practical application yet. Like when I was in college, I accidentally got a second minor because I was taking so many linguistics classes that had nothing to do with the rest of what I was studying.
Yeah.
Um, so like, do you find that having blast over consume, that the thing you need to blast first, that drives the agenda of what you go on to consume? Is that something you resonate with?
It's mixed. So I will consume useless things if it's like interesting. Like I like to learn about history. So like I was
Mm-hmm.
spent the last few days on YouTube learning about like, oh, what would happen if Hitler never invaded Russia, or like
Oh yeah.
those kind of stuff, like infographics. Like I love those stuff, and they're completely worth.
Uh
Like there's nothing I can do with that information, right?
huh.
But when it comes to like,
Well, just don't invade Russia.
yeah, but like when it comes to more practical stuff, then I have to have a use for it. Otherwise, I'm not going to learn it. Like if it's like a practical skill, right? Like if I like working out, then I'm gonna research about exercise. But if I'm not gonna work out, I'm not gonna even research it. Like screw that, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna. There's no point. There's for me. There's no application for it. Like even my YouTube channel right now. Like my biggest message here is like I don't want to learn all these theories and stuff if there's nothing. If you can't use it to like improve yourself, if there's
Mm-hmm.
no practical use, to me it's worthless. I mean, that's probably not true, but to me it is. So I don't know if that's like the same as what you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of like thinking, but you seem to learn things even though you're not going to use it. So it's a little bit different, right?
And there'll be times where if I might come across some random situation where something that I consumed like 5 years ago, there out of the 100 things I've consumed, there might be like that one random thing. I'm like, whoa, now it's suddenly applicable. I can't think of any like concrete examples, but I feel like that's something that has happened.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that it could happen. Like it clearly
Yeah,
no experience, but like
the
for
cost benefit analysis is definitely off.
yeah, but I've been caught with my pants down, not doing consume before blast. Like here's the absolute worst example. Like not worst example, best example.
Uh-huh.
The best example actually. So I went on a road trip this past week, and I've been trying to figure out. Okay, I was an idiot in the past. I know I did a lot of things wrong when I did road trips, or we went on a hiking road trip. So we would drive to a place and then we would go hiking there and then, go to the next place. In the past, some of the things that I fucked up on was number one, I didn't bring enough food. Like one time I went on a trek, I didn't have enough food. So I actually had to beg other campers. Thank God I'm a
Mm-hmm.
double decider. I can talk to people and ask them, like, to try to get food from other campers. So I'm like, okay, cool, I got food, right? So I'm like, okay, we have a lot of food now, a lot of water. We're good. We're good for that, right? I was like, okay, I don't want to have any car issues, so I'm gonna go put oil. I'm gonna get an oil change before the road trip. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, okay, I'm gonna go budget all this the combination so I don't overspend money. Okay, good. So I'm
Okay.
like, I plan everything, right? Anyways, we're driving back from our road trip, and my car dies. It just completely died. And then, yeah, rest in peace, yeah. And we go to the dealership that was like in a small town because we got the car towed to a small town. And they said to me, your car's no oil. It's completely burnt. It's like gone. I was like, I just got an oil change. How did that happen? They're like, well, you know, sometimes when you are driving for too long and too fast, then the oil gets burnt. I was like, how would I know that? You know, but like obviously I could have consumed beforehand and learned that. But I, you know, and then number two, I didn't buy any like roadside assistance insurance. You know, I should have. This part I could have consumed because I know I was going on a road trip. Why didn't I consume different insurance company? Why did I just start driving? You know, so clearly having consumed about blast will prevent this from happening. You know, like I didn't have my car. Now I have no car. My car's dead. Like I have no car now. You know, so I'm stranded at home. So.
Oh, God. That's part of why I don't drive. I don't have a car. It's just it's too much stuff to manage. Too many moving parts.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm too lazy for that. Like you know, props to you for taking that on.
How do you buy your groceries then if you don't have a car? Like, what do you?
Usually I'll just either walk or I don't know. I had a weird incident. I don't fully understand what was going on at the grocery store where a manager thought there was something shady. I mean, I think because of the mask I was wearing, because you know, pandemic. And so you know, after having a few incidents like that, I was like, you know, let's just go with Instacart. So that's what I do now.
That's funny that everyone looks like a thief with
Right.
Yeah. All right, Ian, dude, I gotta get going and get some groceries. Actually, I have to figure out how I'm gonna do that because I don't have a car, but I'll make it work.
Instacart.
So thanks again, dude, for doing this interview and reaching out. You know, even though you canceled before, but you
Right.
went and did it anyways. And I do think that you have sleep first. That's just my opinion.
Sweet.
And I think you're blast last. I think you have consume and play in the middle. Consume first over play because it's impossible to be. You can't be sleep play.
Sleep
Obviously,
play,
so
yeah.
you can't be sleep consume.
Oh, watch me. I'll make it possible.
Yeah, you'll just break the rules. And
Yeah.
you do seem like you're quite introverted. Like the moment we started the interview, I'm like, this guy's not a play blast, dude. Like what the hell? Like
Right.
you're not a play blast crackhead. I'm the play blast crackhead.
Yeah.
Like you're quite like even keel, you know. So
when I was a kid, my nickname was Eeyore.
You're okay. Okay. All right, dude.
All right.
Thanks again, though. So peace out and bye, everyone.
Farewell.